What is up, Scrub fam? Pat here, back with another video, and today we're going to talk about Unisons. This is going to basically be a Unison 101 video, kind of like a beginner's guide to Unison. So if you're a new player, this is definitely the video for you. Although I do think there are some intermediate and even high-level players that may, have missed some of the rulings or interactions in Unisons, and we'll go over those in this video. If you find this helpful or do you think it'll help somebody that you do know, please consider sharing it out. There's a lot of information to talk about in this video, and I definitely want to make sure that the player base is up to date and they kind of know these little intricacies and rulings that I'm going to go over and talk about today. Before we jump into it though, guys, got to give a shout out to the sponsor, Alec Pastrana over at beardedcollectibles.com. You guys already know he's going to give you guys the best prices on your sealed product, and since we've already seen most of Series 10 and it's pretty good, definitely check him out if you're looking to pick up any product. So let us move on to the content. What are Unisons? So Unisons are a new card type that is introduced in Series 10. Previously, you guys can see we had 3 card types. We had leader cards, which are the characters you play as, battle cards, which are the characters you play from your hand and attack your opponent's life with, extra cards, which provide supplemental effects or beneficial effects. Usually they're defensive in the form of negates. And now finally, Unisons. Unisons are basically extra leader cards that you put into your deck. I believe it was described, I think it was on the official Facebook page, as they work in unison with your primary leader card in order to unleash devastating effects. They provide a lot of beneficial bonuses and things like that. And hopefully once we go over some of the stuff in this video, you'll understand that Unisons are a very important part of the game because they bypass or dodge previously powerful mechanics. And they basically snowball games to a point where it's very difficult for your opponent to win if they do not address it. So they are a powerful inclusion that you probably should put in a lot of your decks. So let us talk about the anatomy of a Unison. Basically, we're going to go over what a card looks like, a Unison card. So on your screen, I've chosen 3 of the random Unisons that are in the set: Mechikabura, Plotting Revival, Gogeta, Pursuit of Power, and Vegito, Unison of Might. So first thing, let's talk about the cost. So in the top left-hand corner, you'll see that each of them has an X followed by these little pips. So you see Mechikabura has 4 yellow pips, Gogeta has an X and 2 blue pips, and then Vegito has an X and 4 red pips. So the cost of Unisons is X. You can pay any amount, you determine what X is. So if you want to pay 7 for Mechikabura, you can. You just have to make sure that at least of the 7 that you choose, 4 of them have to be yellow at minimum. So the cheapest you can play a card like Mechikabura is 4 yellow, Gogeta is 2, and Vegito is 4. When you play a Unison from your hand and it comes into play with markers equal to the cost that you paid for the card. So if you paid 7 for Mechikabura, for example, he comes into play with 7 markers. In the lower left-hand corner, you can see the Unison's power. This is the power, just like a leader card or a battle card, when it attacks, this is how much power it's attacking for. So in the case of 15k, that's enough to actually damage a leader. And likewise, when a card attacks your Unison, this is the power that they have to tie or beat. So similar to various other cards such as leaders and battle cards, like we said. So things you may not notice, or you may or may not notice, I should say: no combo power. Just like a leader, or an extra card, there are no combo power here on the left-hand side of the card. So these cards basically can be considered dead in your hand at certain points in the game if you were to draw them off of your life. So there is some inherent risk involved in Unisons. Also note on the bottom right-hand corner, unlike leader and battle cards, there is no characteristics line. These cards do not have character names, they only have card names. So even though Gogeta, Pursuit of Power, is a Gogeta in terms of the card name and also the character that is on the art, it is not a Gogeta, and therefore it is not searchable by many of the cards that say search for a Gogeta card or things like that. So definitely important to note. At the top of all of the cards, you'll notice they may have keywords. For example, Mechikabura has blocker. There are some that have dual attack, and usually underneath of that they might have static abilities such as Mechikabura's auto here, or Gogeta Pursuit of Power's permanent ability right here. Then after that, we get into the marker abilities, which are designated by these little scouters here on the left-hand side. You can activate 1 scouter ability per turn per Unison. That's important to note. So, for example, if you wanted to use Vegito Unison of Might, you can use any one of the abilities on here as long as you meet the amount of markers required. So Vegeta, when he enters at 4 markers, +1 would increase his number of markers to 5 to get this ability. If you were to use this +1 ability to draw a card and then play a mono red battle card with energy cost of 2 or less in your hand, then you are not able to use the other 2 marker abilities on this particular Vegeta for the rest of the turn unless you were to somehow play a additional Vegeta, which we'll get into later. -2 would send this card from its 4 starting markers to 2 markers in order to get this ability. And then finally, -5 will use the final ability. And now you might be thinking, well, if you start at 4 markers, how are you supposed to get the -5? 2 ways, obviously. 1, use the +1 marker ability and then wait a turn in order to use it, or consider making X 5 or higher and play Vegeta Unison of Might and then use the ability that way. So next, let's talk about benefits of Unisons. So one of the things that I alluded to earlier at the start of the video is that they're basically immune to some of the cards that we've already been talking about before. They are very, very good at countering the counterplay meta that has been running dominant in the game since Series 7 and obviously through 8 and 9. So that is something to consider. Unisons, you can kind of think of them as battle cards with no combo power that have barrier and deflect, if that makes it simpler for you to understand what they are. They get around some of that stuff. Yeah. But the big takeaway, at least for Series 10's purposes, is the beneficial cards that are designed to push the Unison cards. When we talk about push and trading card games, it's the designers are trying to get you to play their shiny new toys, and they're giving you incentives to do so. Many colors in this set have free cards that are very, very powerful and will probably be meta defining for Series 10 and maybe onward to promote you to play the Unisons. So not only are Unisons really good against things that have counterplay and whatnot, they give you access to free pseudo negates like cards like Wolfang Fist, or they give you free removal or counters in the form of things like Yamcha, Merciless Barrage, or SS Trunks God Sealing Technique. These are very powerful effects for the most part, and you want to include Unisons because they can inherently win you the game or snowball the game to a point where you will win if left unchecked. But, you know, on top of just the cards themselves being very good, you get these beneficial effects as well, these beneficial cards that will be really helpful to you. So if you're on the fence and thinking you might not need them, the push is definitely there, I feel like, where you should at least try to experiment with Unisons. And if they're not your playstyle and you don't really like them, that's fine. You don't need to include them. Not every deck needs to have a Unison card, but they are very powerful cards, and you should be aware of the benefits that you get from playing them. So now let's talk about the meat and potatoes of this video, which is the rules and interaction section. Whew, okay, so this is going to be a doozy, so hopefully you guys are strapped in and you guys will learn something from this. So, for starters, you can only have one Unison in play at a time. If you were to play a new one, so for example, if you have Zeno Cosmic Unison in play and you were to play Gogeta Pursuit of Power, you can only have one Unison in play. The new one that you play would basically replace the old one, and the old one would be placed in your drop area. If you play a duplicate copy of the same one, the same would be true as well. The new one would come into play, and the old one would go right to your drop area. Next up, attacking Unisons. Attacking Unisons is very similar to attacking leader cards. That means that even if the card is in active mode, you can still attack the card. So no matter what position Unisons are in, you can still attack them just like a leader. They are not like battle cards where they have to be in rest mode in order to attack them. So that is definitely the thing. Also important to note, when you do attack a Unison card, the person attacking actually has a combo step, but the defender does not have a defensive combo step. So in the example you see in the picture, Android 21 attacks Vegeta, Unison of Might, and if she is able to combo to at least 20k, then as a result, you will see the Vegeta lose one marker. When you attack a Unison and you succeed, you remove one marker from the card. It does not get KO'd. The Unison does not just instantly leave play. The Unison only leaves play if it ends up having 0 or less markers at the end of the combat step. So really important to note. Also important to note, strikes, extra strikes, actually are beneficial. So for example, in the same that you saw before, Android 21 attacks Vegito, Unison of Might, and combos Furthering Destruction Champa to give a 10,000 power boost as well as Double Strike. So again, Double Strike will now remove 2 markers as opposed to 1. So if you are trying to get rid of Unisons quickly, it may behoove you to use things like Triple Strike or Quadruple Strike or Double Strike or things like that. So they are super beneficial. Cards like Saiyan Kaba from Series 1 and cards that are very similar to it have gained an increase in viability, I feel like, with this set because of how good they are at dealing with Unison cards. So next up, let's talk about tucking. I guess we'll call it tucking. There's not really an official name for it, but in other games, I usually refer to it as tucking because it's, the action is kind of self-explanatory. If you have a Unison already in play and you draw or somehow get another one into your hand, say off your life or through an effect that searches it or things like that, and you don't want to play an extra one, but you have a spare one in your hand, you can place that card as long as it's the exact same card number. So if it has the exact same card number, then you are able to place that card underneath of an existing Unison you have in play or tucking it underneath of it in order to give it +1 marker. You can do this even on the turn that you play it, which means if you have 2 copies in your hand, you may be able to do things such as play Vegito, Unison of Might for 4, and place Vegito underneath of the card in order to get to 5 markers to be able to use its final ability right away. So there's some extra strategy in drawing spare copies of Unisons, and having spares in your deck does not inherently make them dead cards like you might think they would be because they have no combo power. So yeah, really important to note if you guys are not aware of that. There are definitely some very niche and strategic uses for this tucking mechanic that will allow you to play or cheat on abilities earlier than you might have previously been able to do. So next up, let's talk about defending your Unison cards. So again, there is no defensive combo stat when a Unison is attacked. So in order to preserve their life total, you have to think about the cards that you're playing and build decks slightly differently in order to really reap the benefits and keep your Unisons on board for a long time. So in the example above, you see the Cell is attacking Android 21's Golden Frieza Unison with a 20k single striker, and that would basically remove the last marker from Golden Frieza, and it would send him to your drop area if he was successful. Since Android 21 cannot combo defensively, we need to use cards like Android 21 Scholarly Gambit, who has Blocker. Blockers are really important, I feel like, going into Series 10 and onwards, because Blocker is one of 2 ways in order to really mitigate this damage. So you see Blocker will activate, you'll switch Android 21 to rest mode, and it will redirect Cell's attack to Android 21 Scholarly Gambit. So now that you are attacking battle card to battle card, there is a defensive combo step since it's no longer at a Unison, and that will allow you to basically either protect the 21 or die, but at the or let her die. But at the end of the day, at least your Unison is safe, and you are able to keep using its +1 and other various abilities going forward. Also, really important to note, and this should be, I guess, somewhat obvious, negates will do the same thing. Since you are negating the attack never actually goes through, so there is no actual combat step. So you can use a card like Dimension Magic in order to make sure that the Cell's attack does not go through and it protects your Unison. Next up, let's talk about targeting. It might seem like it because, Unisons are very similar to leader cards. They are still considered Unison cards, not leader cards, even though, again, they are described as second leaders. So in this example, we have Android 21, a brilliant idea, who has the activate main ability of basically giving something 10,000 power and critical. You choose either a leader card or battle card to give 10,000 power or critical. So in this case, your primary leader, Android 21 Malevolence Unbound, is able to be targeted by Android 21, a brilliant idea, to gain 10,000 and critical for the turn. But even though Unisons are a secondary leader card, they are not leader cards and they are not battle cards. So you are unable to actually target Golden Frieza Unison of Malice with Android 21, a brilliant idea. So let's talk about activate battles on defense. In this example, we have a Saiyan Kaba who is going to be attacking the Android 21 leader. In general play, you guys have probably already seen this if you are veterans. Piccolo has this ability where he can activate battle, and as long as there's at least one other battle card in play with him, he's able to KO anything 5 or less and draw a card. So in the example, Kaba will attack your leader, and after the combo step, during your defensive combo step, since it's your battle, you're able to activate battle with Piccolo, targeting Saiyan Kaba, and KOing him and drawing a card. Again, we keep talking about this. There is no defensive combo step if your opponent is attacking a Unison card. So if the Saiyan Kaba's attack was going at Golden Frieza, Unison of Malice, since there is no defensive combat step, you cannot use the Activate Battle ability of Piccolo, assimilated ability, to KO Kaba. So this is a good way, if you're using cards like Arrival, to be able to swing at your opponent and play Arrival cards unimpeded, or to use cards like Senzu Bean to extend plays unimpeded. There are definitely very interesting advantages that you can get from attacking Unisons before attacking leaders. So sequencing really matters going forward in Series 10 because of this lack of defensive combo step. It basically means that your opponent doesn't get to play things that have Activate Battle or Arrival. So keep that in mind. So here's another one that I think a lot of people may have missed. Be really careful of status changes or power changes when it comes to Unison cards. So in this example, Android 21, Malevolence Unbound, is attacking Cell, who's a 20k battle card. In order to basically get the card off the board and potentially extend plays, she might combo a card from her hand and then activate Senzu Bean, but instead of targeting the leader, she targets Golden Frieza, Unison of Malice, to give him a plus 5,000 power. This will allow him to pressure and attack for 20k instead of the standard 15k. Because remember, Senzu Bean doesn't specify what card; it just says choose one of your cards and give plus 5,000 power, as well as that nice energy on tap. What's important to note is that whenever the markers on a Unison change, it's like it's a brand new card. So what that means is if you were to activate the -2 ability or the +1 ability on Golden Frieza, Unison of Malice, you will lose the 5,000 power boost from Senzu Bean. So make sure you use it before you lose it. It's really, really important to point out. So for example, if you were to Senzu Bean defensively also, one of your Unisons, and for some reason, like, I don't know, there's like, you could activate a marker ability somehow and they were able to hit it, you would also still lose the ability. The takeaway is whenever you use a marker ability or you lose a marker in any way, the power is reset to the default state of the card. So Senzu Beans on your Unisons, not super great unless you really are just that desperate for the play extension or the single attack. Also, this is true for other card effects as well. So for example, if you look at SS Bardock, Paternal Unison, he has this -3 marker ability that says activate main, this card gets plus 5,000 power and triple attack for the turn. If your opponent was to block with a card with Revenge, such as Sin Shenron, Destruction Incarnate, Revenge will trigger and your SS Bardock would be KO'd. But since Unisons can't be KO'd when they would be normally, they lose a marker instead. So since you have lost a marker as your SS Bardock Paternal Unison, it is considered going back to its default state. So your Bardock will lose triple attack and will lose your 5,000 power. So that's important to note. Also, extra cards like Absolute Confidence have an activate main/battle that say choose one of your opponent's Unison cards and remove a marker from it. If your opponent was to attack with SS Bardock Paternal Unison with triple attack, and you use Absolute Confidence on it during your defensive active battle step, you can basically remove a marker from Bardock, and he will lose his triple attack and his 5,000 power. So really important to note, and I don't think that's something that a lot of people are aware of, but now you know. So let's talk about counterplays involving Unisons. So we talked about earlier in the video how you can think of Unisons as basically battle cards that have deflect and barrier and no combo power. That doesn't mean that they don't create counterplay windows. Unisons do create counterplay windows. Most of the time when you are playing it though, a card like Vegeta the Cruel, you're going to be playing your Unison into an empty board. If they Vegeta the Cruel you, they have no real target for the card. I guess they would just play it because they want the 15k on board. So that's why you are not seeing that. But if you already had a card like Android 21, A Brilliant Idea, in play, and then you played Golden Frieza, Unison of Malice, they can respond with a counterplay window and use Vegeta the Cruel, and then target your Android 21, a brilliant idea. So do be aware that that is actually a thing. Like I said though, Vegeta the Cruel still can't target your Unison. So for the most part, if you're just sticking to Unisons, or like leader and Unison based strategies, the windows that you can actually get hit by cards like Vegeta the Cruel are very small. But you do have to be aware that when you do play a new Unison, things that you might have already had on board may become exposed to previous counterplay cards that were strong in Series 7, 8, 9, and obviously the draft boxes. And again, also it does expose you a little bit to cards like the new Atoa Twisted Sister. If you are sequencing incorrectly, you can basically get punished for this. Say, for example, you have a Grade 8 Son Goku Saiyan Instincts in your drop area, and you would like to use its ability to pay 2 to draw 2 cards. If you sequence your turn incorrectly, you may be on the receiving end of playing your Unison and then meeting a counterplay Toa who will shuffle your Saiyan Instincts. And because you did not use Saiyan Instincts first before you played your Unison card, you may be out of luck. So definitely make sure you are aware of the counterplay window that is opened every time you play a Unison card. And lastly, it doesn't really involve Unisons per se in the fact that, in the sense of rulings. But I think it's really important to note that free cards are really, really important, I feel like, in this meta because of how strong Unisons are. So I want to kind of draw your attention to them. Free blockers, as we already explained with the defensive step or lack thereof for Unisons, they provide an extra layer of defense for your Unison card. And some Unison cards, such as the red Sin Shenron, are incredibly powerful. And you really want to keep those around as long as you can. So having access to free blockers is a definite plus. Honestly, any free battle card, even free overwhelms such as Awakened Warrior Bardock, are amazing because if you can play a card like Awakened Warrior Bardock, or even a free something as cheap as a free 5k like Android 21 here, being able to get a free body to pressure a Unison can be a big deal. A lot of the most powerful effects in the format are basically triggered for free when a Unison has 2 or more markers. So being able to play a free 5k or a free double striker to basically take a Unison from 2 markers to 1 or 2 markers to 0 out of nowhere is incredibly powerful, and something that I think that going forward will really define how we think about the Series 10 metagame. So that's basically it for the rulings and everything here, guys. Let me know if there's anything else I missed. Hopefully this is helpful again to you new players. As always, share it if you guys think it's going to help someone else that you may or may not know. And the final takeaway, guys, is Unisons are really important, and I think they're definitely going to define the game that we all know and love for the next, at least, whatever it is, year, however long this block lasts. So yeah, that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. As always, leave us a like and comment if you like it at anything. Definitely check out the Patreon if you're trying to level up your content. Links will, as always, be down in the description below. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.